We apologize for the technical difficulties earlier on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Sometimes we can't control the VMix system, but the show must go on, and now we are all back at our cribs across the greater Cleveland area, ready to break down the Giants versus Browns Week 3 game. The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. And this is why UCSS is special. We go an hour late, and within 31 seconds of being live, we have 400 viewers in here. Joined by Adam the Bull, Jason Lloyd, Earl the Pearl. G. Bush is walking into his home right now. Will join us here in a minute. Once again, we apologize for the technical difficulties earlier. We're going to run through a myriad of topics in the next hour, trying to cover everything we were going to cover on the regular show before we got booted out of the studio. So, Bull, let's start with the blame game. Real quick answer before we dive deep into the issues. How would you divvy up the blame for yesterday's loss to the New York Giants?
So there's a ton of blame to go around. If I had I'm giving like 10 to 15% to a lot of different people, but the biggest share of the blame is to the offensive line. I think they were the biggest of many culprits yesterday. I know there's injuries. That's not an excuse. You're a professional NFL player. I don't care that you're a backup. You've got to be able to do a serviceable job. And the offensive line was absolutely atrocious. So they get the biggest share of the blame, whatever percentage. But I've got some blame on Kevin Stefanski, who I thought did a terrible job. Jim Schwartz did a terrible job. Some blame on Watson. The wide receiver is not named Amari Cooper. And the defense as a whole, outside of Denzel Ward, pretty much. So, I guess basically gave you everybody, but the largest percentage will go to the offensive line.
Jason?
It's probably not the answer you're looking for, but if I'm being totally honest, I blame whoever's making them run this offense. That's who gets blamed for this. Whoever is making them try and play a style that they are not suited to play with a quarterback who can no longer play that way. They had an offense that worked, and they threw it out the window, and they try to do something they don't have the personnel to do. So whoever is, and I don't know who it is, whoever is forcing them to play this way, because I don't think it's Kevin Stefanski, whoever's forcing them to play this way gets all the blame from me.
I don't accept that as an answer, Jason.
I don't care.
We'll dive into that in a sec. Earl, we got G in the wing, so you give us your blame game real quick, and then we're going to thank you for your contributions. You can check out Earl's 216 show he did before this, and then we're going to bring G in. But Earl, real quick, who gets the most blame for yesterday's loss?
For me, it's Kevin Stefanski. The reason why is you're the guy who brought in Ken Dorsey. You're the guy who hired Andy Dickerson. You're the guy who either was on board with or was the front runner of changing this offense and making all these crazy changes to the offensive staff. And to be totally honest with you, this team has been inconsistent, unprepared to play from day one. I thought Kevin Stefanski ran a soft training camp. I thought this team wasn't ready week 1. They played a little bit better week 2. You come back home in week 3, and you crap the bed in every facet of football. You are the head coach of this football team, and when your team comes out not prepared like that against a team at home that you were 6.5-point favorites against, then you get the majority of the blame because you are the head coach of this football team. With that, check out the Ultimate 216 show from earlier. Y'all have a great show.
Thank you, Earl. G. Bush now joining us. G, real quick, rapid fire. How do you divvy up the blame pie for yesterday's loss?
Man, if I can give it all the way to everybody involved, all parties involved, letter D, I would. I'm gonna start with a 50%. If I'm gonna carve it up, man, the offensive line to me used to be the strength of this team. I think now that we look back at it, there has been a bit of a decline with the offensive line. You go back and look at what Nick Chubb was able to do for the team. He was able to make guys miss. He was able to be able to run a certain style, and therefore you were able to use your offensive line and then run play action, different things downfield. That made it easier to throw the football vertically. Since Nick Chubb has been gone, there have been a conscious effort, as Jason said, to be more vertical, to bring more things into the fold. And to be honest with you, this team is not built. It's not built for that. the playmakers on the outside are not the traditional playmakers that you need to throw the football. The receivers look slow. The receivers don't get much separation. And the quarterback that you thought that you were getting that was going to be able to throw the ball downfield is not his game plan. That's not his game. That ain't it. And you're starting to see with the way people are playing defenses, that coupled with the fact of the receivers, not the offensive line, not giving you time. I think all of this goes into the bigger picture of we have to start questioning whether or not this offense or this scheme or whatever they're trying to do, if the pieces, parts, or whatever they're doing is working, because it's very evident when you watch other teams and guys are wide open, guys are running rudimentary routes. When you look down the field for the Cleveland Browns, Amari Cooper caught some very nice passes, but think about it. There was zero margin for error on those passes. These passes, he was blanketed on the coverage. The routes weren't that creative. I mean, basically they're streaks. They're just go routes that happen to hit for you. I don't see anything over the field, no route combinations. I don't see crossers. Deshaun Watson, I don't think he was the main fault for this loss today, but he did miss guys. He missed some guys over the middle. Wire Cooper was one of those guys, really short, threw the ball, did not put it on the numbers for him. But the times where Deshaun Watson was accurate and the times where he was moving the football, it did you no good that your receivers get hit in chest and your running backs are fumbling. I will say I'm going to give 50% of it to the offensive line. I'm going to give another 25% to the coaching staff, and I'm going to give another 25% to the quarterback. So there, sometimes, I tweeted, you're going to have to make some plays outside of people helping you. And there were times where I thought Deshaun did do that. I thought times where he wasn't successful at doing that. But to me, the scary part is that was the best offensive line you had. You're going to have guys that are now 4 guys with MRIs. Jed Wills coming back is not some sort of savior. And you're looking at Joe Bitonio playing left tackle and Ethan Poach's playing guard or whatever the case may be. And that is not a good look for more tough pass rushers coming up.
We're going to dive into the offensive line a little more after a quick word from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season big with a return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get in the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/UCSS. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook sponsor of the NFL. Bull, let's dive into the offensive line before we get into the rest. Yesterday, they certainly struggled. They have 8 sacks, 4 in the first half, 4 in the second half. There were points during the game, I tweeted it out, where it appeared the Browns' offensive line had never blocked a stunt in their life. The Giants were running stunt after stunt after stunt and getting pressure and getting home. In any world, did you foresee this offensive line struggling this much, this early in the season, with a healthy Bitonio, a healthy Poachich, a healthy Teller, and DeJuan Jones, who has taken a giant step back from where he saw as a rookie?
No. How could anybody have foreseen this offensive line playing so poorly? I know a lot of people want to just say, it's Bill Callahan. It's Bill Callahan. I think it's more likely Tom Callahan, Tommy Boy's dad, than it is Bill Callahan. The reason. First of all, has anybody seen the offensive line stats for the Titans, by the way?
Not great.
Their offense is terrible.
Do you know which team is allowing the most sacks per pass attempt in the league?
I'm going to guess the Titans based on
that would be the Titans. The Browns are terrible. They're third. But in terms of sacks per pass play, the Titans are the worst in the league. So I'm not saying Bill Callahan's not a great coach. He's an excellent offensive line coach. But the idea that the whole offensive line is falling apart because Bill Callahan left is stupid. The offensive line is falling apart for a variety of reasons. A small percentage of that is probably Bill Callahan. But Tonio looks old. I don't know if it's just early season. I don't know what the reason is, but he looks old. He's not the same player. Ethan Posick was a complete bust in Seattle. He played very well his first year here. Last year he was hurt, and so far this year he looks like the bust that was in Seattle. Wyatt Teller's dealt with a lot of injuries, as Jason knows well, the last few years. Maybe that's caught up with him to some degree. And the tackles, first of all, Jed hasn't played in forever. DeJuan Jones weighs over 400 pounds. I don't care what he's listed at. I'm a fat man. I know how much fat men weigh. Okay, so don't tell me he weighs 360 pounds, because there's no way on earth. That guy is 425. He might be close to 450. He is completely out of shape. He cannot play. G started mentioning this when we were doing the show in the studio. He is so slow. It doesn't even matter how strong he is, how big he is, because first of all, the defensive ends around the league, especially the good ones, and we saw some good ones yesterday, they're all so quick. It doesn't even matter that you're big. They're running right by you. And especially when he wasn't fast to begin with. Now he's beyond slow. I mean, he's as slow as it gets on the offensive line. So he has no chance to stop any of these pass rushers. So it's just a combination of things here that have led to the fact, and there's not much hope. Like with Bitonio and Teller, I'm like, all right, maybe they'll round into form as the season goes. But I'll tell you, if Bitonio and Teller, and Bitonio's turning 33 in like 3 weeks. If Bitonio and Teller can't get back to what they were, then they might have the worst offensive line in the league, or certainly amongst the worst offensive lines in the league. And we thought this was a strength.
Gee, I want you to go last on this because you played offensive line. You could talk in the stunts. Jason, I know you watched the offensive line. You had the numbers after week 1. Are you going to try and say the offensive line played well yesterday or better than we thought? Or did you and the numbers indicate exactly what we saw, which was constant pressure on Deshaun?
No, you can't possibly say that the offensive line played well yesterday. It was obvious, especially on the edges. The tackles, the issues that you're having, I think, with the guards, with Bitonio and Teller and Postage and Bull, I don't think Ethan was a bust in Seattle. He was hurt. He had a ton of injuries in Seattle. When he was healthy here, he was very good. He was very productive. But I think probably the guards know what's going on at the tackle right now, and I think it hurts them a little bit because they're trying to do 2 jobs. And you're right about DeJuan. He does look. Listen, fat guys better than me. He's big. He's big. And it probably is. He's a little bit bigger than he was last year. I told you guys last year the concern with him was some of the maturity stuff, was staying in shape, that sort of thing, being a professional. That's what they were concerned about with him. It wasn't the on-field talent. And maybe you're seeing a little bit of that. I do think his knees bothering him. Like, guys didn't blow by him last year like this. So I think his knees bothering him. Now, is it bothering him because he's overweight and out of shape? Yeah, okay, I'd buy that. But the knee is right now a hindrance, and Kevin even acknowledged that after the game, that right now he's physically limited. The Jed situation, he's had 3 or 4 practices total, comes back yesterday and gets hurt again. I actually thought, Zach and I talked about this during the game, after the game, we both wrote about it. I thought not having Jermaine Ifedi up was a terrible miscalculation, making him inactive, knowing how limited you were going to be on the tackles. And that's not to say Ifedi's good or great, but he at least is a warm body who's played tackle before. And the fact that they left him inactive to try and bring up another linebacker for special teams seemed curious before the game and seemed like a major roster mismanagement after the game. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you they played great. They didn't. I actually thought they were better when Bitonio slid to left tackle and Postage moved to left guard and Nick Harris came in. It actually looked better. And I thought that at that point, it's funny because I thought at that point Deshaun started getting the ball out faster. And Mike, I texted you before the show. That actually isn't true. It was actually, I can't remember numbers off the top of my head, but it was the first, this was the quickest he's ever been hit from pressure all season long, was week 3.
I have the numbers you texted me this morning if you want them real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said his time to throw under pressure was 3.82 seconds. His lowest of the season, it ranked middle of the pack, but he's usually within the top 10. In the first half, it was 3.56 seconds. Yep. In the second half with Bitonio at left tackle, it increased to 4.03. So almost an entire half second more pressure.
When they really had to go to the patchwork line, it was actually better. And that was pressure. Those are pressure numbers. That wasn't average time to throw. That was pressure. And pressure in this instance is defined as when you're hit, hurried, or sacked. So he actually had a little bit more under pressure, a little bit more time when the line changed, when they moved Bitonio to left tackle. Wyatt's probably going to miss a couple of weeks with this, I think, is what the news you're going to hear in the next couple of days. So they're going to have to this is not a problem that's going to solve itself overnight. Is Jed out again? Is Wyatt out again? Could Conklin be back? It seemed like he had a late setback Friday or Saturday. So I don't know if he'll be ready to go or not, but it's a crisis right now. The offensive line is a crisis, and particularly at the tackles. More so, yes, Joel's getting old, and Wyatt's had some injuries. They're really high on Zach Zinter. We'll see with him. I don't think Wyatt's going to play. I'm not concerned with the interior as much as I am with the exterior. I think if you solve the tackles, but Garrett, you would know better than me. I think if you solve the tackles and the guards would have more trust and faith in the tackles that they would do their job, that some of the other problems would clean themselves up.
I thought you were right on. Their best tackle might be Joe Bitonio, which is hard to say. I noticed that. I was talking to my dad, and we looked and said, man, well, it was one play where I think Brian Burns got around the corner on him a little bit. But I think
he got flagged for a holding. It might have been that play, but he got flagged for one.
It was that play. Yep.
But the thing about it was, I think after that, the speed of the game, it slowed down for him a little bit. And I thought Joel did a good job on the outside, especially being a guy who's used to being inside in the interior. It's a different level of athlete that you're looking at on the outside. And I'll say this too a little bit. When you look at the Giants pass rush, oh no, they're legit. I've talked about this for a long time with Mikey throughout the season. I said Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy. Dexter Lawrence is a monster. We saw him pushing the pocket all day in the middle. And Brian Burns is a guy who is a freak show as well. So, we talked about those things, and I think that contributes a little bit. But the tackle position is it is really hurting people. It is really hurting the Browns, and it's really a situation where DeJuan Jones needs to lose about 100 pounds. And right now, and you're correct, Bull, he's playing well over 400 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing well over 400. And when you have that much weight on your frame, I knew this was going to be a tough situation because when you take a look at what's going on with the Browns in general, they had all these guys in the offensive line coming off surgeries. Those guys came off surgeries, and when you come off surgery, you're not practicing, you're not doing much, you're not conditioning, and everyone looks like they are about 5 to 10 pounds overweight and about a little sluggish. Joe Bitonio, I think he's lost a step. Now, granted, he's a borderline, in my opinion, when he's playing, he's a borderline Hall of Fame type guy. So if he loses a step, okay, he just becomes an average guy, right, or above average player. But I still think the outside is where your problem is. Jed Wills, even when Jed came back, Jed looked clueless. Jed let 2 or 3 guys walk right past him. Ethan Pochich, the buck is still out on him.
It's your phone, Bull. Please turn your ringer off.
My ringer is off.
Is that me? Is that you?
No,
I looked at me. I was like, man,
I think it's Bull.
That was me that chatted from Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I thought I was sending out my own chat.
Right.
Some people in the chat are real, not nice. They say awful things. So I was commenting. I said they're D's, but the rest of you, hello. People say some messed up stuff in there.
Hey, enter the chat at your own peril.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
And well, because Earl and Mike were flipping out. I mean, Earl and Anthony were losing it because I said stop being bleeps, but hello to the rest of you. And I did it under UCSS. I thought I was doing it under my own name.
So
yeah.
we'll
get in trouble for that. So please,
all right,
ringer off. Gee, you're on a nice soliloquy. Finish up here.
So we'll finish it up. I think in general, you're gonna have to look at it. DeJuan Jones, how are you gonna work yourself into shape when you have a knee issue? That's something you should have worked in the offseason. Jed Wills, to me, he hasn't played in well over a year almost. It seems like. When he did come back, it looked like he was gimpy. It looks like he was not ready to play, and it looked like he was confused on what's going on. And one of the things that the major focus and issue that we have is it isn't Bill Callahan that you're missing so much. But one thing that you have to take in consideration is that when you are the run game coordinator, you coordinate anytime you draw a play up, right? You can coordinate it and draw it up anyway. You could have a guy backside pull. You could do pull and pin. You can run zone. You could double to the mic. You could do all these things. They also coordinate whether or not the tight end is going to block the end. There's schematic stuff that you talk about with Bill Callahan as him being part of the running game. And one of the things is the Browns running game does not look the same. It does not look like they're blocking it up the same way. It's just not the pass game that's hurting you a little bit. The thing about the Browns was they were always able to run the football. They were always able to use that big offensive line and weigh on people and grind you down, and then now use the play action. And I think it goes to a bigger question and a bigger problem that we have with the Cleveland Browns is, what is the identity of what they're doing? And does the personnel that they have right now have the slightest chance of being successful? If you want to throw the ball downfield, do you have linemen that are pass blocking type physical linemen? Do you have receivers that can run, jump, get downfield, create separation? And do you have a quarterback that can throw the ball deep with accuracy in order to keep people from coming up short? I think this is three parts of the program that are a scary situation for the Browns, because I don't think the tackle thing is fixable. I'm starting to say the deep ball opportunity and deep shots is not fixable with the personnel, and who knows what situation you have between Dorsey and Stefanski on what is this offense supposed to be like.
And by the way, there's so much. It's so funny because half the fan base wants to blame the offensive line, half the fan base wants to blame Deshaun Watson. And everybody gets mad at you when you blame the other, when clearly there's plenty of blame to go around. The offensive line sucked. Watson didn't play well enough. There's all kinds of problems. I don't want to hear the excuses, G, though, about Bill Callahan being the run game coordinator. You have new coaches in the NFL. You have new coordinators in the NFL, and teams doing better. They had a whole offseason, a whole preseason, a whole training camp, and now 3 games to fix it. That can't be an excuse at this point. That to me I'm not buying that.
Well, no. Listen here, I'm not using it as an overarching theme. The offensive line has to be better. You have to get people off the line of scrimmage. The point I'm making is, when we thought we had a cohesive offensive group and game plan, and right now it does not seem like the running game is working, the passing game is working, or the blocking is working. So that comes back to your coaches and says, okay, well, what is our plan? And it doesn't help. Earl said it. They ran a soft training camp. So we didn't get a chance to see any of it. It almost make me want to think like, oh, listen, this is bad. We're not even going to put them out there. Hopefully they work through it. Because when Zach Jackson said it was bad, dang it, I didn't even think it was going to be this bad up front.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the identity crisis coming up in a sec. Before we switch over to Deshaun Watson, because that is the other part of the offensive discussion today, it's worth mentioning that football and family go hand in hand, and there's no better way to watch football than with your family, with your favorite game day foods and snacks, which you can get on DoorDash without missing a single play. Right now, if you use promo code LOCKEDFALL24, you get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. It is a limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to get your game day favorites. You must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. After that offensive line discussion, Jason, do you think it is fair or unfair to evaluate Deshaun Watson's play against the Giants in a good light or a bad light? Or is it all tied to the fact that the offensive line was giving up pressures, playing and play? Is it fair to actually give an evaluation on his performance, or is it unfair considering the offensive line's play?
It's always fair to evaluate the quarterback. Always. It doesn't matter what else is going around him. His job is to figure it out and make it work. And yes, of course, there were opportunities where he was rushed. There was some that I didn't understand where he starts in the shotgun and it looks like he's still taking a 5-step drop out of the shotgun. Get rid of the ball. Get rid of the ball. You know the situation that you're under. Get rid of it. There were guys that were open on certain routes. I'm not saying this is not the conversation I had after week one. Week one, I felt really strongly that he was holding the ball too long consistently. He was missing guys who were open. And I think as the week went on, the data and the talking points sort of bared that out. I'm not saying that this time, but I'm saying that there were opportunities and there were plays. The 4th and 1, I have no idea what he was looking at. On the RPO on 4th and 1, after Jameis gets blocked on 3rd and 1, if you're going to pull it back and you're not going to hand it off, you have to throw that ball. And Jordan Akins was open, and he was looking right at him. You have to throw that ball. And so that's what I'm talking about. There were opportunities in there to make plays that he didn't make. This is not the Deshaun. I don't want to have the same conversation week after week after week. we have to forget the idea of Deshaun Watson from 2020 and 2019. That player does not exist anymore. I don't know why, but I know I have 4 years of evidence to say that that guy doesn't exist anymore. But someone in Berea hasn't figured that out yet. And they're just going to keep ramming this home, trying to play that style. And they don't have the personnel to do that. But it's still fair to evaluate the guy. You have to. Like, he's the franchise quarterback. Bull, you talked about it before. Joe Burrow's played behind some horrendous offensive lines, and the Bengals did just fine. But you have to run the route schemes to fit that. You can't be trying to run 15, 20-yard depth routes when you're under the type of pressure that they're under. There are ways to mitigate spotty line play, and the Browns aren't doing it. So I don't give Deshaun a pass. And yeah, Cedric Tillman dropped the ball, hit him right between the numbers. He absolutely has to catch that ball 10 times out of 10. He has to catch that ball. That's not on Deshaun, obviously. But there are plenty of other plays that I can point to that were on him that weren't made yesterday. He didn't play well.
You know what's interesting? You know what Deshaun Watson and Bryce Young have in common? Anybody?
The 2 lowest QBRs in football this year.
That is correct. See, we're unfortunately in a spot where the Browns quarterback is not good at playing quarterback. And who could have possibly guessed that? I get it. He wasn't the biggest culprit to me yesterday. He made some really good throws. That touchdown throw to Amari Cooper was a great throw.
Both of them were, honestly.
Yeah, they both were. And those plays to Amari on the sidelines, like, yeah, we know Amari's great at getting his feet in better than anybody, but he made some good throws. But he doesn't see the field the way the great quarterbacks do. And frankly, as you said, Jason, forget about the past. I don't even know. Watching him now, I don't know how he had the success he did in Houston. Maybe all the stuff he's had to deal with from a mental standpoint has destroyed his confidence and taken his ability to see the field. Maybe. I don't know. All I know is that he has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league for the last 3 years by almost any stat. QBR near the bottom, completion percentage near the bottom, turnover percentage near the bottom.
I don't know that there's a stat that he's good in.
Wins.
I really don't.
No, he's not. Is he that good in wins, Mike? What is his?
Got like a 600 win percentage as a starter.
What's his record as a starter? First of all, don't count that game where he played 3 plays against the Colts.
Well, he was 4-1 last year.
Yeah.
3-3.
So that's 7-4. So he's 8-6.
That's about 600.
That's not 600.
Is it 570?
Whatever it is, it's 14 games. Don't tell me about 600.
You asked. I'm answering you. I agree. I don't quarterback. You don't win and lose as a quarterback.
It's ridiculous.
You just asked the question. I was just giving you an answer.
Again, not the biggest culprit yesterday, but he misses too many plays. And when is it going to be like? Is that going to change? I said last week that I've given up hope on him being great. And hope he can be serviceable, decent. I thought he was in game 2. I thought he was close to that in this game, serviceable, but I still think he was pretty bad. You look at his QBR just for this week, he was like 23rd out of 28. He just misses too many things. Again, he's getting no help. The wide receivers don't get open. There's too many drops. The O-line stinks. I'm not giving a pass to anybody on the offense. They all suck. The play calling sucks. Kevin Stefanski's got his head up his ass. Maybe he should start calling out players like Callahan did in Tennessee. And let's face it, as much as I like Stefanski, him being a 2-time coach of the year is the biggest fraudulent credit in the history of professional sports. We all know that. Anybody with a brain knows that. He's not I like Kevin Stefanski, but the idea that he's been the best coach in the NFL 2 times is laughable, and anybody with a brain knows that. Let's be honest.
G?
Well, listen, Deshaun, he missed some. I seen it. I got to watch the all 22, but there's 2 throw to Akins. He should have threw that. There was another play where he missed Amari Cooper on a shallow drag. He airmailed it. There's another one to Elijah Moore down the seam. I don't know if it was a miscommunication on whether or not he wanted to run a skinny post or keep straight and run vertical. He was kind of demonstrative after that. No, Deshaun Watson didn't play, and I even tweeted, look, Deshaun needs to be transcendent. He's gonna have to make a couple of plays in this game because he's not getting no help from a lot of different areas. So he's gonna have to make some plays in this game. However, when it comes to this game in particular, I agree. This was not game one. There were times where Deshaun Watson was getting pressure and he couldn't even step up in the pocket. Game one, I would say, hey, step up, get rid of the football, do something, right? This game, I don't care if you was Patrick Mahomes. Like the pressure, 17 hits was crazy. 8 sacks, you can't win those games doing that. And there's still penalties up front. When you look at the situation with Kevin Stefanski, I don't know what it is. At one point in time, you're going to have to get 2 yards by running the ball. I don't want to see a quarterback sneak in the RPO on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 3rd. It's 3rd and 1. You can't get a yard. You can't give me 1 yard. I don't know what that is. And here's the bigger picture. We've been kind of caught in this thing where either it's Deshaun Watson or it's Joe Flacco or it's Baker Mayfield. We have been micro-focused on the quarterback play. And I'm afraid that while we've been micro-focused on the quarterback play, we have fallen off at other positions that we just haven't noticed. I woke up this morning and questioned, look, man, nobody wants to say this, but we had 2 superhuman freaks. One of them is Nick Chubb and one of them is Myles Garrett. And when it comes to Myles Garrett, I'm telling you right now, when you have guys that been triple teamed their whole life, when you got guys and you run the style of offense that you run where you're running the ball, you guys get old very quickly. Myles Garrett, we may be seeing the start of the decline of Myles Garrett. And at the end of the day, I've told you before, Myles Garrett is not one of them people that's going to sit around and when your body starts hurting and you're losing games and you look up and say, wow, I don't know if I could do this. He started at the end of the game, he said, my feet and my back hurt. Everything hurts. Every time I get ready to do something, this hurts. You look at the breakdown of Wyatt Teller, the breakdown of Antonio, the breakdown of Nick Chubb. And my big fear is this. We missed our window, fellas. We missed the window. We at this point, we are the people that we wanted to still be intact while we were playing musical chairs at quarterback. And we thought we was getting a little bit of a quarterback issue here or there. And we thought we was getting something that was going to prolong that window. Maybe we missed it. Maybe we missed it.
Certainly possible. Wyatt Teller, by the way, officially from Stefanski will miss a couple of weeks, according to the head ball coach. One thing on Watson I wanted to point out, Bull.
Mike, real quick, though, but based on what you said, and I know Jason knows this better than anyone because he talks with Wyatt. For Wyatt Teller to miss a few weeks, it's got to be really bad. Right, Jason?
I have not talked to him, but yeah, I think I believe it's an MCL.
Oh, boy.
So I said earlier in the show he's going to miss a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's season ending, but based on what I heard yesterday after the game, they knew it was going to be a few weeks.
And can you even count on the fact? I'm not counting on the fact that Jet Wills is going to be able to come back and play a significant role on this team the rest of the year.
I don't know what's going on with Jed. I have no idea. He had a knee scope and he missed 11 months or 8 months or whatever it was. It's insane. And obviously there was something else going on with it. Obviously he had some sort of setback. It's not supposed to take this long to come back, and he didn't even make it through one game. And I don't know if what he left with yesterday is tied to what he had previously. Common sense logic would indicate yes, but I don't know that. But yeah, I don't know how you can count on him right now in any capacity whatsoever.
Myles Garrett day to day, says Mary Kay.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Myles next.
Yeah.
I want one last point on Watson, and I'll do another read. We'll get to Myles Garrett. But when you go back and watch the tape, one of the things he did really well in Houston, and one of the things that the best quarterbacks in the NFL today do, is they throw guys open. The receivers don't have to be open. They have anticipation to, okay, he's covered now, but if I throw it to a certain spot, I can throw guys open. Through at least 3 weeks, and he's been under constant pressure, and his receivers aren't great, he hasn't thrown guys open. He hasn't found ways to anticipate some certain windows and throws that we had become accustomed to seeing him doing back in Houston.
We got to stop making excuses. Like every time we say Deshaun Watson's not playing well, we're like, I do it too. Well, the offensive line's bad. We know these things are bad. We don't have to reiterate it because we're worried that that the people on this side of the aisle are going to get mad every time we say Deshaun Watson's not good.
I'm just pointing out that one particular facet of his game has not been there through 3 weeks.
He was brought here to raise the play of the guys around him. He has not been able to do that.
I will say this. The reason we pre-qualify a lot is because we are hyper focused on the quarterback. We talked about it all off season. It doesn't matter what everything else happens. It's about Deshaun Watson.
All on 4.
That's not accurate. you can't say that all these things. And that's the thing. It's hard as hell to win football games. And if it takes more than one area opportunity for you to win these games. And when we're watching it, yeah, there's some throws that Deshaun Watson needs to make. But as I talked about in the post-game show, there are major issues with this team from the top down in terms of what they're calling, the philosophy, what they're running. So I think we do a disservice to boil it down to the quarterback. Yes, if Deshaun Watson was Patrick Mahomes or whatever the case may be, maybe we could expect to come out here and be like, hey, we're just going to hand him the ball and make some plays happen. Today, that is off the table. But he is not the quarterback that can do that.
That's right. And the truth is that there are only a few quarterbacks that make their players better. The Browns are flawed, but we thought Deshaun Watson was one of those special quarterbacks that make players better, as Mahomes does to a level nobody else does. But to a lesser degree, there are a few other guys who do that, like Josh Allen, like Joe Burrow. Look at the Bills. They're off to a good start, right? They're playing tonight. Who are they playing tonight?
Jacksonville.
Yeah, they decent chance they get to 3-0. We'll see. Who do they got skill position wise?
It's a worse receiving core than the Browns. There's no doubt about that.
Who's their number one receiver? Anybody know?
Khalil Shakir.
Okay, good luck.
Yeah.
And what they're about what? Because he's special. He makes as you said, Joe Burrow, the year the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, he was the third most sacked quarterback in the league. In fact, including in the playoffs, he got sacked like 20 times. They still one play away from winning the Super Bowl.
Yep. And instead, we sit here and celebrate because he threw a dime to Amari Cooper in the corner of the end zone. Okay, great. You're an NFL quarterback. You damn well better be able to make that throw. But we take victory laps in Cleveland. Like, people celebrate that he made one good throw and act like he's back. He ain't back, guys. He ain't ever coming back. You bought a bus pass. You didn't buy
and you Baker Bros are still not vindicated, even though he played like crap again this week. He's not the answer either. The Browns, yes, looking back, the Browns should not have made this trade, but Baker was not the answer either. So either way, we're screwed. The team can't find a quarterback. The team's going to need a quarterback. They're going to have to draft one.
I hope they can coach him up well enough to play as good as Baker was playing when they got rid of him. How about that?
And can we say this too?
Last point, we're moving on.
For all the musical chairs that we got at calling the plays, Stefanski, you the only one that had that play sheet the whole time. The last game I saw you when Flacco was here, everybody want Flacco to be here, right? We got boat raced by the Texans.
I don't want Flacco here. Anybody saying they want Flacco to be here is an idiot.
Well, here's what I'm saying. The constant is Kevin Stefanski calling plays. That's the constant. They got rid of Alex Van Pelt. They brought in Dorsey. They brought in Dorsey to do a job.
Yep.
He said he was going to call the plays. And Kevin Stefanski, by the way, the first 3 games, Brian Dable looked like a genius. I didn't see the same level.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Stefanski in a sec here because I know Bull had some issues and they have a bit of an identity crisis. We're gonna talk Myles Garrett next, though. Before we do that, another reminder that NFL fans can bet big on FanDuel, America's #1 sports. We get some big returns too. So while you're watching a game, if you get a hunch about how the outcome is going to happen or the next touchdown score, you can place a bet on FanDuel and on FanDuel. On top of placing bets, you can also check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play and more. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed just by placing a $5 bet. That's if you use the link FanDuel.com/UCSS. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook sponsor of the NFL. Myles Garrett, Kevin Stefanski says he is day-to-day with a foot injury. Yesterday after the game, he said essentially both his feet hurt, and because his feet hurt, he's putting pressure on parts of his leg that don't typically get extra levels of pressure, and his legs are starting to hurt. It doesn't appear, based off of day-to-day status, he's in line to miss any type of significant time, but it also appears he could be in line for some more serious injuries if he doesn't have the proper time to heal. If Myles Garrett is hampered and hindered and not playing at the level we have become accustomed to seeing Myles Garrett play at, can this Browns defense survive the season, Bull?
No, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Let's face it. He's so good that we kind of look for things to knock him for because he's just so good. There's nothing. Anytime he's not absolutely perfect, we complain about it, myself included. The rest of the Browns defensive line is a bunch of guys. They're not bad. None of them are bad. It's a bunch of nice players, but none of them are special. None of them. They're Alex Wright, nice young player. I like him. You know that. Ogbo, nice young player. Dalvin Tomlinson, solid defensive tackle. All these guys they're all nice players. They're perfectly fine. But they get their moments because of everything Myles Garrett does. Without Myles Garrett, or a severely limited Myles Garrett, those guys don't scare anybody, and thus the Browns' defensive line doesn't scare anybody, and thus the Browns are going to be a mediocre defense with a hampered Myles Garrett at best, and since their offense stinks, they got no shot. They're going to be under 500 if Myles Garrett's not healthy.
We talked about the quarterback elevating everyone else's play. Myles Garrett does that on the defensive line specifically, G. Can they survive without Myles?
They're done. If he's not playing, they're done. I'm just let y'all know right now. See, we've been lulled to sleep by Myles Garrett's greatness and what he's able to do. By far, he's the best defensive player in the league, by far, because he plays with a supporting cast up front that is not up to par. We talk about TJ Watt. Well, Hayward is one of the best defensive line. You look at the other the guys on the other opposite side of TJ Watt. You take a look. We just talked about the Giants. The Giants, they're like, oh, Giants are terrible. No, the Giants got 3 bona fide dudes that can rush the passer. Max Crosby's coming to town, and guess who
Christian Wilkins.
Christian Wilkinson is up there as well. So my thing is, and I've always talked about this, if you got a generational player, your job, the only job you have is to find another guy that is a stud to go with him. And the Browns have not done that. They look at Emmanuel Ogbah. They've looked at Olivier Vernon. They went and tried to go get Jadeveon Clowney. They've done all of these different things, but you've not drafted another guy up front that you can roll with. And here's the problem. The cumulative effect is now alive and well. Myles Garrett has been in triple team since the day he walked into this league. Those hits, those compounds, the fullback touching you, the tight end chipping you, all of those things are cumulative. And now I would understand if it was a shoulder or something. Myles Garrett's biggest asset is his speed, the ability to bend, run the hoops, and convert that bend and athleticism in his lower body to power and speed. You can't do any of that without feet. You can't do any of that without ankles or knees or anything in his lower body. That's what makes him a superhuman at defensive end. And when that goes, you're going to have other parts of your body that go as well. And the Browns defense is predicated on one thing. We could get pressure with 4 guys, and then we could have another guy in the back cover man-to-man in Denzel Ward, and you can't get anything off. What happens when you can't with 4? You get situations where MJ Emerson looks like a linebacker when you can't get home with 4. What happens? Greg Newsome gets route faded. He gets faded up 3 times in a row like they're picking on him because you can't get home. And if they can't get home and Myles Garrett is hampered, all this illusions of this grandeur of this defense being great is not going to happen. Sorry.
Jason, real quick on Myles Garrett.
I would sit him the next 2 weeks and then see where you're at, because you're going to need him in the back half of the season even more than that. And I know it sounds like it's been a lot of doom and gloom today. If you want a silver lining, here it is. Your 2 losses are against NFC teams. It's not going to matter. Your only win is against an AFC team that you may or may not be fighting for playoff positioning. I know this is an AFC game coming up. The Raiders have struggled offensively. Clearly he is not right. Clearly. I would sit him for at least the next 2. You hopefully could handle the Raiders and the Commanders, because you're better off doing that than continuing to run out of 50% Myles or 70% Myles. It's a long way to week 10, guys, and that's when the bye week is. I give him a couple weeks to try and rest up, because if you don't handle this now and you don't squash this now, and this is something that lingers all year, what are we going to be saying when they're playing the Bengals and the Ravens and some of these games that they have coming up over the second half of the season.
All right, we're going to do one more DoorDash read. We'll get into the bigger picture on the defensive end. But, guys, there's no better place to watch football than your couch with your friends and family and some snacks from DoorDash. And right now, DoorDash has an incredible deal going on where you can save up to 50% off on a $10 value when you spend at least $15. If you use promo code LOCKEDFALL14 on your first order, you'll get that 50% off up to $10 on that $15 or more order. It's a limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. You must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. And in all honesty, if you haven't used DoorDash, it is the easiest way to get food delivered to your apartment by just clicking a few buttons on your phone. I do it all the time, and I probably should cut off my DoorDash account because I spend way too much money by doing that way too frequently.
Who has not
Overall,
used DoorDash, by the way, Mike? You think
What'd
we
you
have
say?
anybody that's never used DoorDash?
Just wanted to give the people a nice shout out because I
hear you, but you say it as if you
Oh,
haven't used it.
there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Hey,
Listen, we have an older demographic here. Speaking of older demographics, Jim Schwartz on the older end of defensive coordinators in football. You like that transition. And he got out-schemed and out-coached yesterday by Brian Daboll. And it may be nothing. And it may be a trend we're seeing in the way teams are attacking this Browns defense dating back to the playoff game against Houston last year. Before the game started, we all did our picks. None of us had the Giants scoring more than a single touchdown. 13 points was the most any of us picked for them to even allow in this game. And they put up 3 first-half touchdowns, including a 13-play, 81-yard drive where they overcame 2 holding penalties on the drive after the interception was nullified by the penalty. Jason, how surprised were you that this defense just got gashed in the first half by this Giants offense that simply isn't very good?
Yeah, I don't think anybody saw that coming. We talked, I can't remember if this was before the show or when we were doing whatever we were trying to do in the studio.
I didn't listen to a single word you said in studio, so if you guys have already said this, I apologize.
Well, I don't know, but we were talking about the fact that Schwartz likes to play with MJ on one side of the field and Denzel on the other, and it doesn't matter where the other team lines up. This is how we do it, and I think that needs to be reevaluated because clearly, I was really high on Emerson, and I still am. I still think he's a good cornerback, but obviously, he's not to the level and caliber that Denzel Ward is. And the Giants just seemed to hunt him out on a lot of those routes with Nabers, that they were going to go find Emerson, and that's where Nabers is going to go. And they attacked it with great frequency and great success. That's just one part of it, but it's a concerning part. So, yeah, I was surprised at how easily the Giants were able to move the ball. I thought they cleaned some things up a little bit in the second half. Bull, you mentioned that they could have scored obviously on that last drive and fell down at the goal line. Singletary went down at the goal line, which is a smart play. But I think by that point, everybody knew the game was over. So I did think the second half was better than the first, but overall, they've got to be better. What are you holding up? I can't see it.
Me?
Oh, wait.
Emerson is a fraud.
Emerson is a fraud. I want written apologies from Jason Lloyd and from Earl the Pearl.
He's not a fraud.
He is a fraud.
He's not elite. He's not elite.
That's it. I'm exaggerating. I'm messing around, but he's not elite. And you guys, I felt like he was getting overhyped. There's only a few select cornerbacks that can play with the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases and the CD Lambs and the Malik Nabers. Now, Malik Nabers has to prove it for longer, but I think we all can see with our eyes in these first few weeks that Malik Nabers appears to be the next great wide receiver in the NFL. And Denzel Ward is a special corner. Martin Emerson is a solid corner. And that was so dumb for Jim Schwartz. And then once the game's over, then he switches it up. Well, it's too late, Jim. You already blew it. How do you wait? Emerson and Newsome were getting killed. Emerson is better against the big kind of, possession receiver type of guy. The guys who are not burning down the field. He struggles with. We saw it in the playoffs against the Texans, and we've seen it again this year, and especially in this game.
The reason why MJ Emerson slid to, he was taking what, in the third round?
Yep.
The reason he slid to the third round is because he's not a quick, twitchy type of corner. He's a bigger, longer press type corner. He does not have the recovery speed. And if you look at it a couple of weeks in a row, the guys that give him trouble are the guys that are going to be able to turn on a dime, pivot, run certain routes, and he can't cover those. Malik Nabers in the end zone he shook him all the way up out of his jersey. And it wasn't even close. You saw the body language. MJ Emerson was like, yeah, I ain't got nothing for this. And Greg Newsome is not much better. Greg Newsome is getting do you know how crazy it is in the NFL for them to run it back? They threw a fade on him and he was toasted by 5 to 10 yards. That was a touchdown. All he had to do was drop the ball in the bucket. They said, you know what? We're so confident that we can cook you again. Let's run it again. And he gets up dancing and doing his stuff. But guess what? He got beat by Brian Thomas last week, like on a big, long, deep pass, right? And today, it wasn't just that. What we're coming to find out is, and I'm sorry, the Browns got maybe 2 special guys, 2 on a possible. They got JOK and they got Myles Garrett.
I put Denzel in there.
But like what I'm saying up front in the front 7. Denzel obviously is elite because, but the fact with Denzel is the injury issues, but he's definitely elite. The problem is Jim Schwartz is not adapting to what they're doing to him. Jim Schwartz, you got to put Denzel on the best guy, and the rest of them guys is going to be over there in the corner, like battling, doing something else. The second thing is, I've been asking you for weeks and months, you're going to have to play some zone, bro. And if Myles Garrett ain't playing, they're going to have to play some zone. The 2 times that they tried to play zone, it was bust. Like Malik Nabers was like, oh, y'all playing zone now? Let me run this little skinny post. Oh, Rodney McLeod can't check me. So, I think, and I'm just be honest with you, they found out if the Browns are the Mike Tyson of defenses. If you let Mike Tyson, remember back in the day, Mike Tyson was knocking fools out in about 35 seconds. But
if people started to round.
Hey, when Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis started being like, hey, listen, let's make Mike go the distance. Don't get knocked out. Use your jab, use your punch, keep him off of you, grab him, hold him, get him frustrated. That's what it is with the Browns defense. If you don't let them be in 3rd and 20 and you dink and dunk, and you saw Daniel Jones do this. Let's run some screens to have him pull up field. Let's throw some jet motion. Let's do some stuff. They wasn't running nothing special. Let's drop back and run quarterback draw. By the time you get past them first 3 or 4 plays in the series, the Browns are giving up 7. They're not giving up 3. They're giving up 7 if you take them the distance. I think they've been found out, and the film does not lie. Offensive coordinators have figured out this is what you need to do to stay consistent with the Browns defense.
Bull?
The defense as a whole was a disaster, has been a disaster this year. Let's face it, it's been a disaster since late last year. Yep. I don't have much more to say in terms of scheme. I think the guy, Jason and G, already laid it out for you. I was so perplexed by how they did not use Denzel Ward to try to shut down Malik Nabers. I know I thought they would do it in this game, especially because unlike some other teams, like when you're dealing with some other teams, the Bengals, the Cowboys, who have special receivers, they have other good players too in their offense. So maybe I can understand it. But the Giants got nobody. The rest of their pass catchers are complete nothings. So it makes no sense to not say, and even if it's just for this game, Denzel, you got Malik, we'll take care of the rest because nobody else in their receiving core is any good. And that's why it was just inexcusable. And he killed them. And yeah, they turned it around the second half, and Denzel did a good job. But part of the reason they turned it around the second half is because the Giants were stupid, as a lot of teams are, and they get super conservative before they should. And they stopped blitzing, both sides of the ball, they got conservative. So let's move on to Stefanski.
We're going to move on to Stefanski here and the identity crisis Jason mentioned earlier. And Jason, I'm going to start with you here to explain your identity crisis theory with the Browns, and then we'll go around the horn and end with Bull, who on top of the offensive identity crisis, to use the same phrase twice, Bull had some issues with Kevin Stefanski's clock management down the end and overall kind of preparation for this game. So Jason, Stefanski, not his best game, but it may not be all on him because of some higher ups, in your opinion?
I just think that they're forcing him to play a system, a style that this team is not suited for. I don't have the numbers in front of me, Mike. I don't know if you do or not about what I sent you last night.
The receiver numbers?
Yeah, basically the Browns receivers aren't fast enough and can't create separation. They're some of the slowest receivers as a whole.
You want the numbers?
Yeah, if you got them.
I got them. Earl, if you want to upload these graphics in, it's wide receiver stat 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think it's number 88 in the folder.
But Jason, let me ask you this before those numbers come up.
Go ahead.
If this is the case, and you're probably right, if he's being forced into running a system he doesn't want to run, it doesn't make sense for this team. Are you saying it's just happening now, or that's been the plan the whole offseason? Because if it's just being forced on him now, then I'm with you. That's messed up.
No,
but if it's been forced all offseason, then he should have been prepared for it.
That's why Ken Dorsey's here. Like we talked about it. We talked about it all summer that there was just something weird about the whole way that whole went down with the way AVP was fired and the way Dorsey came in. I thought for sure Kevin was going to relinquish play calling duties. I was a little surprised that he held on to him. I thought he should have held on to him. I thought he earned that right, and he's done a good job calling the plays in the time that he's here. But I just think that, you saw week one what they were trying to do with some of the stuff with Dallas. And then against Jacksonville, it goes back to a lot of what they ran last year with a lot of extra offensive linemen, a lot of heavy sets. They emphasized the run early. They established the run. They averaged over 4 yards a carry against Jacksonville. Now you come into a game against the Giants, a team that got absolutely gashed on the ground by Washington the week before. Washington did not punt against this Giants defense last week. And they run for, I think it was 165 yards or something like that. You would think that, hey, play the same style you played week 2. It seemed to be successful. It seemed to work. But instead they revert back to the Dallas game of shotgun spread, empty RPO. And they got the exact same result that they got against Dallas. This is a team built for the way that they played against Jacksonville. It minimizes some of the responsibilities on the quarterback. It provides extra blocking for an offensive line that has been struggling. And again, they got 4.3 yards per carry against the Jaguars defense. It's pretty good up in front on the front four.
These are the stats you were referring to, Jason, real quick, from the Athletic, True Media, and Next Gen Sports. But entering Sunday Night Football, the Browns had an average max route speed of 13.6 miles per hour, the third slowest of any receiver room in the NFL. On plays in which Watson has thrown the ball 20-plus yards downfield, they average a max speed on route of 14.7 miles per hour. That's the slowest among any wide receiver group. On deep throws, they've averaged 2.8 yards of separation from the nearest defender on targets, 26th in the NFL entering Sunday Night Football, and they have a stat called receptions above expected, which measures the rate at which you catch tough passes. They combine a couple different factors, and entering Sunday Night Football, according to Next Gen Sports, the Panthers were the only wide receiver group across the league that had a worse receptions above expected average.
But there's still ways to win with that. There's still ways to win. You can win this way with play action, with deep shots, after you've established the run. You can still win with receivers like that, but you don't win by calling deep routes against a fierce pass rush with a broken offensive line and a broken quarterback. That's not how you win. And that's what, go look at Deshaun's pass chart from yesterday and just in talking to guys around the team. Game plan was throw the ball down the field. We're going to throw the ball deep. We're going to line up and we're going to throw the ball deep with slow receivers who can't create separation against a Giants defense that has 3 good players, 3. And they line up defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive end. And they're the only 3 good players on that defense. And that's what you get out of it. And that's why I wrote about it, talked about it. They need to call an offensive style that fits the personnel that they have. And that's the offense they ran last year. And that's the offense they ran in week 2 against Jacksonville. Whatever they're trying to accomplish against Dallas and then yesterday against the Giants, they do not have a team built to play that way.
Bull, I know you got to leave soon, so
Yeah.
if you get all your Stefanski thoughts in, then you could dip, and then
Yeah,
G,
I can say a few extra minutes, but let me say this: Kevin Stefanski, except for Jason, I've defended him more than anyone else. I still think he's a good NFL coach. He's a good NFL coach. He's not a great NFL coach. The coach of the year stuff is bullshit. Sorry. He was awful yesterday, awful, and I got to go back and by the way, going for 2 to get to 15 made total sense. I know the anti-analytics people are going to be against that, but let's go to the end of the game, guys. The last 4 minutes, the Browns are looking at a 3rd and 1.5 at their own 29-yard line. This was not 3rd and inches, guys. This was 3rd and 1.5. They run a quarterback sneak with Jameis Winston. Why? It's not third and inch is fine. You want to run a quarterback sneak, especially now if you're thinking about going for it on fourth down. Run with your running back on third down, or throw the ball. Don't run a quarterback sneak for 1.5 yards. Jameis is good at the I got to fall forward quarterback sneak. He's not good in the I've got to run forward. He may be the slowest quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he can't move. He's got a fat ass. We've talked about this. And I can say it because I got a fat ass. So that was an atrocious play call. And you know me, Mike. I never talk about play calling. Never.
No, I gave you the head turn for saying you had. I don't know if you could say you have a fatty yourself. Like I'm not sure you could unless you got a BBL. Like that's real questionable.
No. So. Number 2. Then after that terrible play, he calls a timeout before the fourth down. Why? Why would you waste the precious time out there? That makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, so then he uses his timeout and he decides to go for it. Now. I am generally go for it guy. I think I would have punted there, but again, and I don't like to punt, but I think I would have punted there.
You punt before you call the timeout,
That's
and you
right.
got 3 timeouts and 4 minutes on the clock.
The Giants had cashed it in offensively. The Browns defense was playing well in the second half. They probably would have stopped. Now they didn't. Obviously, with the second time around, Singletary ran through them, but the game was over then. But if you had punted there, I bet you would have stopped them. And then you got the ball back with and then once you don't make it on fourth down, and the reason I would have probably punted is because you're already in field goal range. Now the Giants missed a field goal, but if they make it, it's a 2-score game. That's why I think you punt there, because it wasn't. If it had been 4th and inches, maybe it was like 4th and 2. Okay. Then the Giants get the ball back that first time. There was, when they get the ball after the change of possession, there was 3:56 to go. The Browns only have 2 timeouts. So after the first down play, Singletary runs for no gain. So it's 2nd and 10. He uses his second timeout there. Why? There's almost 4 minutes left. So the clock, if you don't call, you only have 2 timeouts now. If you let the clock run, it's not going to get to the 2-minute warning. If you stop them on 3 plays and don't call any timeouts, you'll still get the ball back at the very latest at the 2-minute warning, right? So you'd still have 2 minutes and 2 timeouts. Why would you waste the timeouts there? I'd rather have 2 minutes and 2 timeouts than no timeouts and 3 minutes. I want those timeouts are more important because maybe I'm going to have to use them at some point down the line. You never know. I want those timeouts. It just didn't make any sense. And then you're forced to go for it the next fourth down when it's 4th and 11. If you had saved the timeouts, then maybe you could have punted again there. Now, who knows? There probably would have been enough time to punt on 4th and 11, but you had no choice because you had wasted your timeouts. It was really just buffoonery by Kevin Stefanski down the stretch of the game.
G, you could respond to all the above, and then we'll get into some super chats.
Listen, to me, it was 2 weeks in a row. I didn't like how he handled the clock management before in Jacksonville. Then this was even worse. You're a spot on bull. You took all my notes, all the notes that I had.
From you.
I said, dang, bro, he really he was looking through my window. That sequence, and I'm not going to regurgitate that. I'll just say this. If you are going to call the plays, Kevin, you can't have other mental errors in other aspects of the game. If you are so deep in the play calling minutia that you're not understanding that you have to manage the clock on the other end, on defense, calling timeouts and clock management, and you're still having penalties. If you're having penalties and clock management issues, that falls on the head coach, and you should be taking time out to say, look, I hired the man Dorsey. He got the ingredients. We brought him in here because we said that we needed an opportunity to change what we are doing. He is a man without a country at this point. The only common denominator in this whole thing is Kevin Stefanski. He's been calling plays since day one. So if he's going to continue to call plays if he's calling the plays, why get rid of Van Pelt then? What was the reason for getting rid of him? You got rid of him. You bring in a new guy. When you are a play caller, it's from the top down. You create the play. You run the route concepts. You're thinking about getting guys open. You're thinking about sequencing. You're thinking about the blocking assignments. And finally, you're thinking about the way you call a game. It is exactly the way it is with a pitcher and a catcher. You guys are baseball guys. You understand this. When you call a baseball game, it matters what sequence of plays you call. It matters what sequence of pitches you throw. And Kevin is taking somebody else's ingredients that they cooked up during the week, and he's coming and saying, well, I'm gonna serve it, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna cook it, I'm gonna do this. Trust me, it ain't working. It didn't work. Listen, at high level, it didn't work. It didn't work when you had Flacco, and they looked horrible against the Texans. At times, it looked horrible with Baker. At times, it looks terrible with Watson. The common denominator is the guy with the play sheet. Now, listen, if you want to just step out and say, I would respect him if he said the Cleveland Browns are a running offense. The Cleveland Browns are a team that's going to be it. Just go. Mike Tomlin does it all the time. They're out there playing 3-0 football, Steeler football. Raven, did you see what the Ravens did? Did you see what the Ravens did? They ran the ball 46 times and threw it 15, and they got Lamar Jackson. You know what they said? Screw that. The Cowboys are terrible against the run. We're going to pound you up inside your head, and we're going to blow you out. We don't do that. We don't have an identity. Even on 3rd and 1, we have nothing that we can say, this is what the Browns do. Why in the world would you run a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 1, man? Hand the ball to your run. Deontay Foreman ran the ball well in between the tackles. Why would you bring a quarter and then run an RP? Look, they got a lot of problems, but the main problem is something is fishy. And guess what? Ken Dorsey can't do interviews. Is that correct?
No, he doesn't.
He talked last week.
Okay, did he talk? I can't. I don't think Ken Dorsey came here to play the Alex Van Pelt role. Do you believe that?
No, I mentioned it when the first press conference he did after the play calling was announced that Kevin's going to be calling the plays. Mike, remember that? I sent it to you and was laughing about how he was doing everything he could not to say how shocked he was that he wasn't the play caller. Which I don't think he should be the play caller. I don't think he's a very good play caller when he's in Buffalo. He was brought here to try and incorporate more concepts similar to what we've been talking about, some of these spread type concepts, but they don't have the personnel to match that, so it doesn't matter.
Hey, Mike, let me just say one other thing, because I gotta go. One thing real quick before you guys finish up. Couple of positives. I know it's a miserable day. First of all, the season's far from over. As bad as it looks right now, right? The Ravens lost to the Raiders last week. Raiders then lost to the Panthers this week. You know, it's a week-to-week league. Yep. The Browns could go to Vegas next week and look great. And then we're all feeling better about everything. So things do change week to week. Amari Cooper looked like Amari Cooper again. We talked last year about how nobody is better in the league at getting the feet down on the sidelines on passes that you at first glance say, no way he caught that in bounds. And he did. That last one, that third one, I was like, there's no chance he's actually in bounds on that play. And he was, because he's the best at that. I thought Denzel played well. I actually thought Grant Delpit played pretty well. That was about it.
I did too.
Yeah.
That was about it. So.
And Corey Bjorkes. All right, Bull.
All right,
have a good afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow. Real quick update on the tech. It's good for tomorrow, but IT suggesting we buy a brand new VMix system. So be ready for that coming in the near future here for the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Hopefully we can figure out how to make that happen as I switch our cameras around to a 3-shot. Let me add the logo here. We're going to read some super chats. We're going to wrap up today's show. First super chat comes from Sir Charles, who said, no quarterback can have success if receivers can't get open, the line can't block. How can a quarterback get comfortable in the pocket when in 3 games the line has not established a pocket? No top running back can run behind this line either. G, is this as simple as Callahan being a tough coach versus soft coaching? Jones looks heavier and slower. Last year, he held his own against top-tier talent. As a vet, sometimes that tough stuff works.
They got a lot more problems. One of them is health. Jason mentioned it. When you're an offensive lineman, you're dealing with health. Wyatt Teller's been dealing with his health. Poach's been dealing with injuries. But Tonio was banged up as they come, last year. You got Conklin and Jed Wills, who had off-season surgery. DeJuan Jones had surgery. The offensive line, and I think the coaching staff and I think the organization knew. That's part of the reason you didn't see them playing in the preseason, because I think they knew they looked like this. They thought that if they gave them enough time, it'll be a work in progress and get them to the season, and hopefully they could work their way into shape, work their way into playing and cross their fingers that these guys would not be hurt or get re-injured. And we see that's not working right now. So it's more than Bill Callahan. It's more than guys picking up weight. It's a lot of varying degrees of shades of gray with it. And I don't care what line coach you had in here now. He can't wave a magic wand and make people be healthy. It's going to be this is going to be something that we see all year.
Speaking of line health, Ian Rappaport just tweeted is a grade 2 MCL sprain for Teller. Is expected to miss around 4 weeks, but could be more depending on recovery. IR is a possibility. So grade 2 MCL sprain for Wyatt Teller. Jake Ryan says Andrew Berry is terrible at drafting and evaluating talent / personalities. He took Jed Wills over Tristan Wirfs and Anthony Schwartz over Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just bad. Charles T sent 2 super chats. First one, no quarterback can have success if wide receivers can't get open. The line can't block. Oh, Charles T is the one that emailed me. That's the same Charles. Oh, there we go. Charles, sorry for confusing you twice. Now to the super chats on this stream. We have 15 of them real quick. First one comes from JV from Clee. New offensive coordinator and spread offense, new online coach, replacing maybe the best ever in Bill Callahan. New rules on linemen, lining up with the ball with tackles specifically. No preseason work at all. These things equal messy. Hard to argue that. Charles T said, Bill left and O-line sucks. Teller said he was happy with the new line coach because Callahan stressed him out. Being so tough before Bill, most of this line were backup / projects, except Joel and Conklin. Remember that. That goes to the Ethan Poach's thing that Bull mentioned earlier, but Jason also countered with the fact he was always just hurt. Charles T said, in Texas, Watson had 3 good things. Fuller a burner, Hopkins a separator, and an okay running game. Why haven't we went after better weapons? They've tried.
I mean, their names were in the Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes all offseason, right?
I mean, Operation Stockpile was a thing. They did make the trade for Jerry Jeudy. They traded for Elijah Moore. They drafted Cedric Tillman. It's not a lack of trying. It's a lack of hitting. Yeah.
Right.
Charles T with a couple more. He said people expect Watson to throw in 2 seconds or less with no one open and no solid protection. Burrow had Chase, Higgins, and Mixon making plays. No quarterback in NFL history.
Excuses.
No quarterback in NFL history has been good with horrible protection. Even Brady, his main weakness was teams that can pressure him. Watson needs help.
It's always somebody else's fault.
Jeffrey Anderson says the same players look great with Flacco. Watson is a bust. He needs to be benched.
I'd push back on that, Jeffrey. You looked good last year at the end of the year. You did your thing. I love Joe Flacco, what he was doing. But when you came up against a team that was good in Houston Texans, you didn't look good at all. How many points did we score last year? 6, 12?
It was like 17, I think.
It was the pick sixes. The 2 pick sixes broke that game.
Yeah. All right, next one. Armac Dog says, does it seem like Watson is distracted, and based on his performance, does the panel think he deserves to be benched?
He's not going to get benched. He'd have to. I mean,
we're not anywhere near that.
He'd have to. I'm trying to think about what nuclear code. See, here's the thing. When you talk about that, you guys do understand that is one of the worst things that can happen. Because when you do take him out, there is no going back.
No, it's over.
It's
look
done.
at Bryce Young. It's done.
It's finished. There's no going. You're going to play Jameis Winston, and then next year you're going to deal with the cap issue this year in the summer, wherever it is, and then you're going to have to find a quarterback. Is that you think Myles Garrett want to hear quarterback and draft? That is the worst thing that can happen. He has to play every game this year.
Silver says, why not see what DTR can do? G. Bush just answered that. M. Bind says, I agree with G. More is broken than Watson. Also, we need to stop saying we have a better wide receiver group than other teams. They can't get separation. Offensive line coaching, not good. I would sit Myles until he's healthy. He also says Schwartz has been out-schemed all season. Set Apart Laz says it's bad mojo in the stadium. Fans are already booing quicker than any fan base, and it's only game 3. Quarterbacks don't grow on trees. Browns fans should know that by now.
Browns lead the league in getting booed at home, and
they do. I'll be hearing it at the house too. And McNuggets, you close enough to the stadium, you probably hear it before we do it on a live stream.
So, yeah, I didn't want. I can hear. It's cool. So from my apartment, I can see the jumbotron. So I know what's going to happen before. Like if I'm watching the jumbotron, I can hear the fireworks. I can hear the cheers. I can also hear the boos.
That's crazy.
I don't live that far. Browns fans are loud, and the cheers and the boos echo quite loudly down into the flats. Curtis Thomas says the O-line has given up on Watson. Why waste my body on 4? I don't think that's fair.
No, I don't believe that.
Look, I think Browns fans in general, I don't know if you guys agree with me. We just tired, man. Like they're just tired. Like I don't think at this point we care who the quarterback is or what he is or what he does. We just want to be competent. You know what I mean? Like I could take if the Browns came out and they played a really hard game, and at the end of the game, the other team just made more plays, or the other team just really they made a play. What we're gonna say it was a close game, but the Browns, I think the fans are disappointed because we were supposed to be past a lot of this.
Yeah,
we were past like talking about whether or not it's the quarterback or not. Like we've been doing that for 20 years of our life. You know that, right?
Gee, they made the trade to put an end to the jersey.
Right.
Someone's supposed to be here for a decade, and
they got worse. And they got worse.
I was going to point out, I posted G on my Twitter today, the all 22 from the first half sacks, from all 4 sacks, the end zone angle and the sideline angle, and just said, what do you see? No context, just said, what do you see? And it's a 50-50 split of people saying, that's all in Deshaun. How's he not seeing open guys? And it's the other half saying, the offensive line gave him no time. No one's open. What's he supposed to do? I have never seen one player, and maybe Baker was the same way by the end of it, and I got here right at the end of the Baker thing. One player have such a 50-50 divide in a fan base to where nothing's his fault or everything's his fault, and there's no real in between whatsoever.
Baker was the same way.
It was the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the same way with Brian Hoyer and Johnny Manziel. It was the same. I'm telling you, like we've been doing this for 20 straight years.
If you want to laugh, go look at some of the quote tweets and replies to my my tweet with the all 22. You want to see some people who don't know football on both sides of that argument? Go check out those replies. A couple more. We have 3 left. Charles T says, and this is a great point by Charles T. Play action works great with Nick Chubb. No team is scared of Ford, especially how this offensive line is playing. That's how you know it's a personnel issue.
Well, they also averaged 4.3 yards a carry last week against Jacksonville. So
you have to commit to it. Like you have to commit to it. I always say you don't got to be married. You be married to the idea that guess what? We're going to run the football, and it may not work every single time, but we will at least try to do it.
I think they ran it 5 times in the first half yesterday with running backs. 5.
Yeah.
I think
it was less. Hold on. I pulled those numbers. Let me find my notes here. Hold on one sec.
It's obnoxiously low.
They had
offensively low.
I think it's four running plays with a running back. They had 19 offensive plays in the first half. Deshaun dropped back 15 times. He was 8 of 11 and got sacked 4 times. And the other 4 plays were running back carries. That's it. 4. Comically low.
That game plan for any defensive player, I'd love that. What do you mean I don't got to get off a run block? Yeah. I just run upfield. Awesome.
2 more super chats. Christian Story says Stefanski is starting to remind me of Baker, and I'm not trying to be funny. Just not consistent enough as a play caller. 1 week he's great, terrible the next. Constantly tries to outsmart people. #too fancy. And last but not least, JV from Clee says, I know it won't happen, but I'd love to hear an interview of Vrabel and what he thinks and has to say. Thoughts? I'm not looking for a coach swap. Just curious.
Hey, listen.
Vrabel will be disgusted. I can tell you that.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, look, listen, I hope these are 2 NFC losses, but I ain't going to say this. Yes, I will. They better figure it out because comments like that will unravel a whole season. Like Jason, you've seen it. You've seen where slow starts, injuries, and then a key player kind of checking out can unravel a whole season. Now, I'll give Kevin Stefanski credit. It could have unraveled last year, but he got people together, and the whole Flacco thing kind of sparked and gave people a reason to believe. This year, it's not going to be as easy, and they have to have leaders that say, I saw Joe Batonio talk after, he said, you're going to have to look at each other and say, what are we going to do? What are you going to do to put it on the line to make sure? Because this week against Vegas ain't going to be easier, and you still got an opportunity to do something here, but it could go either way, depending on what the locker room is like.
And last one real quick. E-Unit says Kev is struggling to get on the same page with his offensive coordinator. We apologize for the tech issues earlier. I'm glad we got to go an hour and 21 minutes here to recap the Browns-Giants Week 3 catastrophe. We are back tomorrow. We've been assured the VMix system will work tomorrow, and we're going to look to buy a brand new one so we can avoid all these tech issues we're getting of late. Maybe it's just the system as a
How much does one of those things cost, by the way?
Am I allowed to? I know the answer. Am I allowed to say it on air?
I'm not a producer.
Stop you.
What do you say, Jason?
Who's going to stop you?
That's like a couple grand.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, that's light. Shout out to Technim. Do we get that? We should be able to get that through Amazon tonight.
We have gone over budget already, so let's see if they can find another couple grand in the budget. But yeah, that's it for the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Jason G, Bull, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow back in studio. Fingers crossed that's the last of our tech issues for a long, long time. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you later.
Peace.